After 20 years fixing engines and building our auto service business from nothing, I thought I could handle any breakdown. Equipment failures, difficult customers, cash flow problems. I'd seen it all. But nothing prepared me for the night my Army buddies and I discovered our wives' secret warehouse. What started as suspicious behavior became a betrayal that threatened everything we'd built. Three veterans about to learn that some problems can't be fixed with tools and elbow grease. My name is Dorian Blackwood. I'm 42 years old, and I thought I had it figured out. Sterling Hawthorne, Garrett Whitmore, and I built our auto service empire from scratch. 6 locations across 3 counties, each managing 2 shops. We'd been through Army deployments together, came back, and turned our mechanical skills into something bigger. Celeste, my wife of 8 years, seemed happy. At 40, she still turned heads when we walked into rooms together. She worked part-time at a marketing firm, spent afternoons at yoga, and always had dinner ready when I got home covered in grease. But comfort makes a man blind. It started small. Celeste began working late, claiming her boss landed big accounts requiring after-hour sessions. She'd come home smelling like expensive perfume instead of her usual vanilla spray. Her phone, which used to sit carelessly on counters, became glued to her hand. The breaking point came on a Tuesday in March. I finished early at the downtown shop and decided to surprise her with takeout from that Italian place she loved. When I called her office, the receptionist said Celeste had left at 3:30 for a dentist appointment. I sat in my truck outside our house for 20 minutes, holding those containers, trying to make sense of it. Celeste didn't have dental insurance through work, and she always used Dr. Patterson on 5th Street, who closed at 4. When she walked through the door at 8:15, I asked about her appointment. Celeste paused too long, then smiled. "Oh, just a cleaning. You know how Dr. Patterson runs behind." But Dr. Patterson had retired 6 months ago. That night, lying in bed while Celeste slept peacefully, I made a decision that would change everything. I was going to start paying real attention. The next morning, I called Sterling and Garrett. We met at Riverside Diner, our usual spot for private business discussions. Sterling cut straight to the point after I explained my suspicions. "Brother, if you're having doubts, something's wrong. Your instincts kept us alive overseas." Garrett nodded, stirring his coffee. "Bryony's been acting strange, too. Claims she's taking certification courses for work, but I've never seen any materials around the house." Sterling's face darkened. "Vivian told me she joined a book club Thursday nights. When I asked what they were reading, she couldn't give me a straight answer. 3 successful businessmen who'd built an empire together, realizing we might all be getting played. That's when we decided to find the truth. The plan came together over the next few days like we were planning a military operation. Sterling suggested we use the tracking app he'd installed on Vivian's phone for safety reasons after she'd gotten lost hiking last year. Garrett had access to his wife's work schedule through their shared calendar. I knew Celeste's routines better than she thought. Thursday evening, Celeste announced she was heading to another late strategy session. She kissed my cheek, grabbed her purse, and walked out wearing that expensive perfume again. "Showtime," I texted the guys. Sterling replied immediately. "Vivian just left for book club. Moving out." Garrett's message came 2 minutes later. "Bryony's certification class starts in 20. I'm already in position." We decided to meet at the old gas station on Route 47, about halfway between our neighborhoods. From there, we could coordinate our surveillance without looking suspicious. 3 business partners meeting up wasn't unusual for us. I followed Celeste's car from a safe distance, my heart pounding like I was back on patrol in Afghanistan. She drove past her office building without slowing down, continued through downtown, and headed toward the industrial district where property was cheap and privacy was guaranteed. My phone buzzed with Sterling's voice message. "Boys, this is getting interesting. Vivian just picked up 2 other women I don't recognize. They're heading toward the warehouse district." Then Garrett's text. "Bryony's not going to any class. She's following the same route you guys are describing." The realization hit me like a punch to the gut. Our wives weren't just lying to us individually. They were coordinating their deception. I watched Celeste turn into the parking lot of what looked like a renovated warehouse. The building had tinted windows and expensive cars scattered around the lot. This wasn't some dingy affair location. This was organized, upscale, intentional. Sterling's truck pulled up beside mine in the shadows across the street. Garrett arrived 30 seconds later. "What the hell is this place?" Garrett asked, rolling down his window. Sterling had his binoculars out. Looks like some kind of private club. Check out those license plates. Half of them are luxury vehicles. I counted at least 15 cars, including our wives' vehicles parked near the entrance like they belonged there. How long has this been going on? I wonder aloud. Garrett's jaw was tight. Long enough for them to get comfortable lying to our faces every week. We sat there for 40 minutes, watching people come and go. Men in expensive suits, women in cocktail dresses, everyone looking like they were attending some exclusive event we'd never heard of. Then Sterling made the call that changed everything. Gentlemen, I say we stop guessing and go find out exactly what our wives are doing in there. You mean just walk in? Garrett asked. Sterling nodded grimly. My coworkers and I secretly followed our wives to this private party. Now we're going to walk in without warning and see what kind of reception we get. I felt my pulse quicken. What if we don't like what we find? Then at least we'll know the truth, Sterling replied. We parked the trucks and started walking toward the warehouse. 3 men about to discover just how deep the betrayal went. The warehouse door wasn't locked. That detail hit me harder than it should have. No security, no bouncer, no barriers. Like they weren't worried about uninvited guests because everyone who mattered already knew about this place. Sterling pushed the door open first, his military training kicking in. Garrett and I flanked him as we stepped into what looked like an upscale lounge. Dim lighting, leather furniture, jazz music bleeding through hidden speakers. The kind of place that charged $500 just to walk through the door. Jesus, Garrett whispered. This isn't some dive bar affair. A hostess approached us, clipboard in hand, looking confused but professional. Gentlemen, are you here for the Meridian Society gathering? Sterling stepped forward, using his commanding presence. We're looking for our wives. Celeste Blackwood, Bryony Hawthorne, and Vivian Whitmore. The woman's expression shifted slightly. Oh, they're downstairs with the other members. Follow the staircase past the bar. Members. The word burned in my chest like acid. We descended carpeted stairs into a basement that had been converted into something between a high-end nightclub and a private resort. Couples everywhere, but not the kind you'd see at a church social. The lighting was deliberately intimate, creating shadows that concealed as much as they revealed. Then I saw her. Celeste was sitting at a corner table, laughing at something a man in an expensive suit was whispering in her ear. Her hand was on his thigh. She looked more alive than she had in months, like someone had plugged her into a power source I'd never been able to provide. Sterling spotted Vivian first. There's my wife, he said through gritted teeth. She was dancing slowly with someone who definitely wasn't her husband, her arms around his neck like they'd done this 1,000 times before. Garrett found Bryony at the bar, accepting a drink from a man who was young enough to be her son. When he leaned in to kiss her neck, she didn't pull away. How long has this been going on? I asked, my voice barely steady. Sterling's face had gone stone cold. Long enough for them to get comfortable. We stood there for maybe 2 minutes, watching our wives in their natural element, before Celeste looked up and saw me. The color drained from her face, but she didn't jump up or try to explain. She just sat there, caught like a deer in headlights. Then the man beside her followed her gaze, saw us standing there, and smiled. Looks like the husband's finally figured it out, he said loud enough for nearby tables to hear. That's when the room started to notice us, and everything went to hell. The laughter stopped first, then the music. Within seconds, the entire basement had turned to stare at 3 men who clearly didn't belong in their exclusive little world. Celeste finally stood up, smoothing down her dress like she was buying time to think. Dorian, what are you doing here? What am I doing here? I repeated, my voice carrying further than intended. I'm looking at my wife with another man's hands on her body. What are you doing here, Celeste? The man beside her stood up too, and I realized he was bigger than me. Younger too. Everything I wasn't. Maybe you should leave, he suggested, his tone casual but threatening. Sterling stepped forward, and I remembered why he'd been promoted to sergeant overseas. Maybe you should keep your mouth shut before I shut it for you. Vivian appeared at Sterling's elbow, her face flushed with panic and alcohol. Sterling, please, let me explain. Explain what? Sterling demanded. Explain how my wife of 12 years has been coming to sex parties while I'm working 60-hour weeks to pay for the house you live in. Bryony materialized next to Garrett, reaching for his arm. Garrett, honey, it's not what it looks like. Garrett pulled away from her touch like she was radioactive. It looks like you're cheating on me with a kid who's barely old enough to drink legally. What exactly am I misunderstanding? The hostess from upstairs appeared with two large men who looked like security. Gentlemen, I'm going to have to ask you to leave. This is a private event. Sterling's laugh was harsh and bitter. Private event. Is that what we're calling it? I looked around the room at the faces staring back at us. Some looked embarrassed, others annoyed that their party had been interrupted, but none looked surprised. This wasn't the first time husbands had discovered this place. How many of you are married? I called out to the room. How many of you have families at home who think you're at book clubs and certification courses? Several people looked away. A few started gathering their things. Celeste grabbed my arm. Dorian, please, not here. Let's go home and talk about this. I pulled free of her grip. Talk about what? Talk about how you've been lying to my face for months? Talk about how you've made me feel crazy for questioning where you were going. You don't understand, she said, tears starting to form. You've been so distant, so focused on work. I felt invisible. So you decided to become visible to other men instead of talking to your husband? The security guards were getting closer, but Sterling positioned himself between them and us. Garrett had his phone out, recording everything. Smart move, I told him. We're going to need evidence. That's when I noticed something that made my blood run cold. On the wall behind the bar, there were photos. Dozens of them. Pictures from previous parties, different faces, different nights. And in several of them, I could see Celeste, Bryony, and Vivian, smiling, laughing, very clearly enjoying themselves. This wasn't a mistake or a moment of weakness. This was a lifestyle they'd been living while we paid the bills and played the fool at home. We're leaving, I announced. But this conversation is far from over. As we headed for the stairs, I heard Celeste call after me. Dorian, wait. Please. I didn't turn around. Some bridges, once burned, can't be rebuilt. The drive home was silent except for the sound of Garrett's phone uploading videos to a secure cloud folder. Sterling had his jaw clenched so tight, I thought he might shatter his teeth. Me? I felt numb, like someone had disconnected my emotional wiring. We regrouped at my house, since Celeste wouldn't be home for hours. She'd probably spend the night spinning damage control with her fellow cheaters. The thought made my stomach turn. Gentlemen, Sterling said, cracking open a beer from my fridge. We need to approach this like a business problem. Emotions won't help us now. Garrett nodded, still reviewing the footage on his phone. We've got video evidence, but we need more. Financial records, communications, the whole network. I pulled out my laptop and started thinking like the businessman I was. If this has been going on for months, there's a paper trail. Hotel receipts, restaurant charges, maybe even membership fees for that place. Sterling leaned forward. You thinking what I'm thinking? Bank statements, credit card records, phone logs. I confirmed. Everything we can legally access as their husbands. We spent the next 3 hours going through everything. Celeste's credit card showed charges at expensive restaurants on nights she claimed to be working late. Hotel bar tabs when she said she was at yoga. Even a monthly payment to something called Aurora Holdings LLC that I'd never heard of. Look at this, Garrett said, pointing to his screen. Bryony's been buying lingerie online. Expensive stuff. When's the last time any of us saw our wives in new underwear? Sterling found travel receipts. Vivian charged a weekend at the Grandview Resort last month. Told me she was visiting her sister in Cleveland. The evidence painted a picture I didn't want to see but couldn't ignore. Our wives hadn't just cheated. They'd created elaborate cover stories, spent our money funding their affairs, and turned deception into an art form. Here's what we're going to do, I said, feeling my military training kicking alongside my business instincts. We document everything, secure our assets, and prepare for war. Because that's what this is now. Sterling raised his beer. To brotherhood and truth. To not being fools anymore, Garrett added. We clinked bottles. 3 men who'd built an empire together, now planning to defend what was left of our lives. My phone buzzed with a text from Celeste. Coming home soon. We need to talk. I showed the message to the guys. Let her talk, Sterling advised. But record everything she says. And whatever you do, Garrett added, don't let her know what we've discovered yet. We need more time to prepare. I deleted the message without responding. If Celeste wanted to play games, she was about to learn that 3 successful businessmen could play harder than some cheating wives. The battle lines were drawn. Celeste came through the door at 2 in the morning, moving carefully like she was walking through a minefield. which in a way she was. I was sitting in my recliner, TV off, just waiting. The lamp cast enough light to see her face clearly when she realized I wasn't asleep. "Dorian," she said softly, "we really need to talk about tonight, do we?" I kept my voice level controlled. "What exactly do you want to discuss, Celeste?" She sat on the edge of the couch, still wearing that dress that had driven another man crazy a few hours ago. "I know how it looked, but you don't understand the whole situation. Enlighten me." She took a deep breath, and I could see her choosing her words carefully. "That place, those people, it's not what you think. It's more like a support group for couples having problems." I almost laughed. Almost. A support group where you sit on other men's laps. "It's complicated," she said, looking down at her hands. "You've been so distant lately, so focused on the business. I felt like we were becoming strangers. So, instead of talking to your husband, you decided to get close to strangers." Her eyes flashed with something that looked like anger. "Don't you dare judge me, Dorian. When's the last time you asked about my day? When's the last time you looked at me like I was more than just someone who cooks your dinner? When's the last time you were honest about where you were spending your evenings?" The question hung in the air between us like a challenge. Celeste's face went through several expressions before settling on defiance. "I didn't plan for things to go this far," she said finally. "How far have things gone, Celeste?" She looked away. "I think you already know." The admission hit me like a physical blow, even though I'd been expecting it. Hearing her say it out loud made it real in a way that seeing it hadn't. "How long?" I asked. "Does it matter?" "It matters to me." She was quiet for a long moment. 3 months. Maybe 4. 4 months of lies. 4 months of coming home to kiss me goodnight while smelling like another man's cologne. 4 months of me questioning my own sanity when I noticed the changes. "Who is he?" "Dorian, please." "Who is he?" "Celeste. His name is Marcus. He's divorced, successful, and he makes me feel like a woman instead of a business partner's wife." The casual way she said it, like she was discussing her preference in restaurants, made something inside me break. Not my heart, that would heal. Something deeper, something that had believed in us. "Pack a bag," I said quietly. "What?" "Pack a bag and stay somewhere else tonight. Tomorrow we'll discuss how to handle this properly." "Dorian, you can't just throw me out of my own house." "Watch me." My tone must have convinced her I wasn't bluffing, because she stood up and headed for the bedroom. 20 minutes later, she was at the front door with an overnight bag, looking smaller than I'd ever seen her. "This doesn't have to end our marriage," she said. I looked at this woman I'd loved for 8 years and felt nothing but emptiness. "Celeste," I said. "It already has." 3 days after kicking Celeste out, I started feeling sick. At first, I thought it was stress. The divorce papers were being drafted, the business needed attention, and sleeping alone in our bed felt like lying in a graveyard. Then the symptoms got worse. Sterling found me doubled over in the shop bathroom, sweating and shaking like I had the flu. But this wasn't flu season, and I hadn't been around anyone sick. "Brother, you look like hell," he said, helping me to a chair. "When's the last time you ate?" "It's not food poisoning," I managed. "Something's wrong. Really wrong." Garrett took one look at me and made the call I was too proud to make. "We're going to the emergency room." Now, the ride to the hospital was a blur of nausea and cold sweats. In the ER, they ran blood tests, took samples, and asked questions I didn't want to answer. Dr. Williams came back with results that made my world collapse all over again. "Mr. Blackwood," she said, her voice gentle but firm, "we need to discuss your test results. You've tested positive for a sexually transmitted infection." The words hit me like a sledgehammer. That's impossible. I've been faithful to my wife for 8 years. Dr. Williams glanced at my chart. "The infection we've identified typically requires recent exposure. Have there been any changes in your relationship status?" Sterling and Garrett exchanged looks. They knew about Celeste's affair, but this was a new level of betrayal. "My wife has been unfaithful," I admitted, feeling like each word was cutting my throat. But I didn't know she could give me something like this. "Unfortunately, infidelity often comes with health risks," Dr. Williams explained. "The good news is this particular infection is treatable with antibiotics. The concerning news is that your wife may have exposed multiple partners to this." I thought about Marcus, the man she'd been seeing. I thought about that club, all those people mixing and matching without protection or consequences. How many others had Celeste infected? How many had infected her? Doctor, Sterling asked, what are the long-term effects if this had gone untreated? In severe cases, infertility, organ damage, even life-threatening complications. I felt rage building in my chest like a furnace. Celeste hadn't just broken our marriage vows. She'd risked my health, my life, my future ability to have children with someone who actually loved me. I need to make some phone calls, I told the guys. To who? Garrett asked. My lawyer. And then I'm calling Celeste. She needs to get tested, and she needs to contact everyone she's been with. This isn't just about our marriage anymore. Sterling nodded grimly. What about the other wives? If they're all part of that same circle? The realization hit us simultaneously. If Celeste had this infection, and they were all sharing partners at that club, then Bryony and Vivian were probably infected too, along with their husbands. We need to tell them, I said. Tonight. Some betrayals just keep getting deeper. The conference call that evening was the hardest conversation I'd ever initiated. Sterling and Garrett were at my kitchen table, their phones on speaker, while I explained the medical results to our wives. You're lying, Bryony said immediately. You're making this up to hurt us. Bryony, Garrett replied, his voice deadly calm. Medical records don't lie. Unlike some people we know. Vivian was crying. Sterling, I'm so sorry. I never meant for anyone to get hurt. But you did get people hurt, Sterling shot back. You got my best friend sick, and God knows who else. Celeste's voice was barely a whisper. Dorian, I didn't know. I swear I didn't know I had anything. That's the point, Celeste. You were sleeping around without protection, without testing, without caring about consequences. Now I'm on antibiotics because of your selfishness. Dr. Williams had given me a list of questions to ask, and I went through them methodically. How many partners had each wife been with? When was their last testing? Had they used protection? The answers were worse than I'd feared. Multiple partners, no recent testing, sporadic protection at best. The Aurora Collective had been a petri dish of sexually transmitted infections, and our wives have been active participants. All three of you need immediate medical attention, I stated. And you need to contact every man you've been with in the past 6 months. They need testing too. We can't do that, Bryony protested. It would ruin reputations, destroy marriages. Like you destroyed ours. Garrett interrupted. Lady, you're worried about embarrassing people who are already cheating on their spouses. Sterling was looking at his phone, scrolling through something. I've been researching this Aurora Collective. There are online reviews, membership forums, even social media groups. This thing is bigger than we thought. He showed us his screen. Hundreds of members, monthly events, even vacation packages for lifestyle couples. Our wives hadn't stumbled into an affair. They'd joined an organized community of cheaters. How many other husbands don't know? I wondered aloud. According to this forum, Sterling continued, most of the women are married to men who aren't part of the lifestyle. They call them vanilla husbands. Vanilla husbands. Like we were the boring ones for expecting fidelity and honesty. Here's what's going to happen. I announced to the 3 women on the call. You're going to get tested immediately. You're going to contact every partner from the past 6 months. And you're going to provide us with a complete list of everyone you've exposed. And if we refuse, Vivian asked, then we go public, Sterling replied. Social media, local news, whatever it takes to warn other families about what's happening at that club. The silence on the other end told us they understood. Their secret was out, their health was compromised, and their marriages were over. But we weren't done protecting ourselves and our community yet. 2 weeks after the medical revelations, I thought we'd reached rock bottom. I was wrong. Celeste, Bryony, and Vivian had apparently decided that if they were going down, they'd take us with them. It started with social media. Pictures appeared on Facebook and Instagram showing Sterling, Garrett, and me at various business events, but with captions that painted us as controlling, abusive husbands who'd driven our wives to seek comfort elsewhere. Then came the reviews on our business pages. 1-star ratings with detailed stories about how we were unstable, violent, and unsafe to work with. Suddenly, customers were canceling appointments and asking for different mechanics. The worst part was the false police report. I was at the downtown shop when Officer Martinez showed up with his partner. Mr. Blackwood, we need to speak with you about a domestic violence complaint filed by your wife. My blood turned to ice. That's impossible. I've never laid a hand on Celeste. She claims you threatened her physically during an argument about divorce proceedings. Says she has witnesses. The witnesses turn out to be her affair partners from the Aurora Collective. People who'd never met me, but were willing to lie to protect their little sex club from exposure. Sterling got hit with similar charges. Garrett faced accusations of financial abuse for freezing their joint accounts. Our lawyer, David Kim, was working overtime to defend all three of us simultaneously. This is coordinated, David explained during our emergency meeting. They're using the legal system as a weapon to discredit you before the divorce proceedings begin. Can they do that? Garrett asked, his face pale with stress. They're doing it, David replied grimly. The good news is that false accusations usually fall apart under investigation. The bad news is that the damage to your reputations might be permanent. That's when I made a decision that surprised even myself. David, I want you to file a counter lawsuit. Defamation, intentional infliction of emotional distress, fraud, everything we can prove. Dorian, Sterling warned, that'll make this public. Really public. Good, I said, feeling a calm fury settle over me. Let's make it public. Let's tell everyone exactly what the Aurora Collective is and how these women have been lying to their families. Garrett nodded slowly. You're talking about going nuclear. I'm talking about protecting ourselves and other men from these predators. How many other husbands are being lied to right now? How many other families are being destroyed while these women play victim? David leaned forward. If we go this route, we need to be prepared for total war. They'll escalate, try to destroy you completely. They're already trying to destroy us, Sterling pointed out. At least this way, we fight back. I thought about the infection Celeste had given me, the lies she'd told, the way she was now painting me as the villain in our story. Some battles you can't avoid by being reasonable. File the papers, I told David, and prepare a press release. It's time to show this community what we're really dealing with. That night, I called my old Army buddy who worked in cybersecurity. If our wives wanted to play dirty, they were about to learn that 3 successful businessmen had resources they'd never imagined. The gloves were coming off. 6 months later, I was standing in the courthouse steps, breathing free air for the first time in what felt like years. The false charges had been dropped, our counter-lawsuit had been settled in our favor, and the Aurora Collective had been exposed in a series of news articles that rocked our entire region. David Kim shook my hand with a satisfied grin. Congratulations, Dorian. The divorce is final, the settlement is in your favor, and your business reputation is restored. Sterling and Garrett flanked me, both looking like they'd aged 5 years but survived a war, which in many ways we had. What's the final damage report? Sterling asked. Celeste gets minimal assets, no alimony due to her adultery and fraud, David explained. The court was particularly unimpressed with her false accusations and perjury attempts. The investigation had revealed everything. Bank records showing the wives had been funding their affairs with marital assets. Phone records proving they coordinated their false accusations. Even testimony from other Aurora Collective members who'd grown disgusted with the vindictive campaign. Most importantly, 6 other men had come forward after our story went public. Their wives had been part of the same network, and they'd been living the same lies we had. Our decision to fight back had saved other families from years of deception. Any word on the medical situation? Garrett asked. All clear, I confirmed. The treatment worked, no permanent damage. And interestingly, when the health department investigated the Aurora Collective, they found 3 other STI outbreaks traced back to that facility. It had taken courage to go public with such personal details, but the public health angle had given our story credibility and legal weight that pure revenge never could have achieved. A year later, I was running my auto shops with renewed energy. Sterling had expanded into custom restoration work. Garrett had opened a training facility for young mechanics. Our business partnership had not only survived but strengthened through the crisis. As for my personal life, I'd started dating Sarah, a nurse I'd met during my medical treatment. She was honest, straightforward, and had no patience for games or deception. After everything I'd been through, those qualities felt like precious gifts. The Aurora Collective had been shut down by health authorities and faced multiple lawsuits from infected members. Celeste had moved to another state, apparently hoping to start fresh somewhere people didn't know her story. I didn't waste energy hating her anymore. She taught me valuable lessons about trust, self-respect, and the importance of fighting for truth even when it's uncomfortable. Standing in my shop, watching my team work on honest repairs for honest customers, I realized something important. Betrayal had nearly destroyed me, but refusing to be a victim had saved me. Sometimes the best revenge is simply building a better life.